Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, hey, listen! A retrospective review of The Legend of Zelda. In understanding a game series that was foundational to me as a player, it would be incorrect of me to not include the Legend of Zelda series in that august and select group. However, the series did not click with me until Link to the Past, which I have covered at length previously. Yet I have played quite a number of the series titles. Not all of them, to be honest, but enough to be able to discuss and cover in brief the titles I have not previously given their own episode, and my overall thoughts on the scope of the game itself. I was never a Mario kid, although I loved what Nintendo had to offer. Thankfully for all of us, series creator Shigeru Miyamoto is an extremely creative man and came up with a wealth of ideas from different forms of personal inspiration to make something everyone could enjoy, no matter what their likes were. And that is how this series came to be. Inspired by his childhood wanderings around his home of Sonobe, Japan, he wanted players to experience the same sort of feelings he did: curiosity, apprehension, and the rewards of exploring the unknown. Takashi Tezuka was the man responsible for the story and setting, being inspired by such things as Arthurian legend and The Lord of the Rings. But who was the Zelda in The Legend of Zelda? As it turns out, it was American novelist, painter, and socialite Zelda Fitzgerald, wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald, the writer of The Great Gatsby and author in the endless series of fucking awful Americana novels and novelists your high school English teacher insisted you read, because Miyamoto thought her name sounded pleasant and significant. Had he dived deeper into the known of the woman and her husband, that they were widely regarded as genuinely awful people during the Jazz Age, what with infidelity and alcohol running rampant, her own deteriorating mental health to where she was either constantly suicidal or homicidal and requiring psychiatric care, she would be posthumously diagnosed with bipolar disorder, he might have picked a different name. Always do your research, folks. Yet I said this was not an immediate buy-in series for me. Well, this is an adventure game series, and no, it is not a role-playing game series. Not in the sense of Dungeons and Dragons style role-playing, upon which the whole game genre is based. It is not exactly the same as much of the adventure games it debuted around, which took their inspiration more from an Indiana Jones style of cinematic adventure. The Legend of Zelda is more of a novel adventure, like the things it was inspired by, requiring you to explore and talk to locals, search out sometimes obtuse clues, and experiment with the tools you discover along the way. Ultimately, the series revolves around the dance of the Triforce and its three figures: Princess Zelda, holder of the Triforce of Wisdom, who is reincarnated endlessly; Ganon, or Ganondorf the Thief, holder of the Triforce of Power, and who, like a powerful lich, is exactly the same throughout all of the timeline; and the hero, that would be you, who is different every time and is tasked with recovering or reassembling the Triforce of Courage. Generally, the hero is named Link, although a number of games allow you to change this, but it is cosmetic. For a number of years, players have wondered if the series is a connected timeline, or if, in truth, each game is individual and just an updated retelling of the same game for every generation of console, along with some new console mechanic like Mode 7 graphics or motion controls. And yes, it was finally revealed in 2011 that there is an in-house design document where every game does follow a chronology in its fiction, although in 2003 Miyamoto did state that they were following a timeline. Upon seeing this timeline of events, in which the game Ocarina of Time is the deciding factor where the timeline of the series diverges from the hero is defeated and the hero is victorious in binding and imprisoning Ganon, I have played way more of the hero is defeated timeline games, which I guess could put the nation of Hyrule, where most of the games take place, into a state of a magical post-apocalypse, which is a very cool idea and which developers would work on more, such as the latter half of Final Fantasy VI, or say something like the Shadowrun tabletop game, or the Deathgate cycle by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Although in reality, most developers trying to do something with that would make a much worse version of Fallout, but with wizards. Anyway, let's get into this timeline of heroes in green tights. First up is the original Legend of Zelda from 1986. I never owned this title, but I first saw it in a childhood friend's house because his dad owned a copy and was playing it on their NES. When I asked about it, my friend dismissed it. He thought it was alright, but kind of boring, but his dad loved it. I asked if we could play it, and he said no, his dad didn't want us ruining his save file. So I mostly just saw it in gaming magazines such as Nintendo Power, and, well, that was about it. I'm not sure the Super Mario Bros. Super Show counts, but I was sure as shit locked in every Friday when the Legend of Zelda cartoon played in my local area. The game looks so different from what I was playing on my own NES, such as Castlevania, Mega Man, or other odd titles like Power Blade or Shatterhand. But yet, I actually didn't play through it until a few years ago when it was available on the Nintendo Switch NES collection of games. And by then I already knew all the secrets and spoilers by cultural osmosis. You were Link, young adventurer in need of a sword, and holder of a dream to save a kidnapped princess, hunting down relics in 8 dungeons, each of which contained a piece of the Triforce of Courage you would need to defeat the sorcerer named Ganon, which you do when you confront the demonic Pigman. For an NES game, this title must have seemed boundless in its scope. With the built-in cartridge save game and the map sections where enemies repopulated when you left the screen, and were built around similar tiles that connected to form this almost procedurally generated game world. As an adult in a world of experiences where we've survived 60-plus hour games, and worlds where you could see distant mountains and trudge to them, The Legend of Zelda feels small, samey, and like a graduated arcade game. But it is the game that started it all, and it very much deserves all the praise for launching this classic series of games that have gone on to inspire so much. But when The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link debuted in 1987, well, 1988 here in the States, I was there. No one was going to tell me I couldn't play this or that. It was boring. Well, I played myself. This game presented absolutely nothing like the first game, which was a top-down, tile-by-tile exploration game. This one was a side-scrolling game where the top-down view was only in the overworld map, where you could explore anywhere, even if you weren't ready for it. I didn't know what I was doing, where I was supposed to go. I didn't understand what the game was asking, and all the talking to figure out the clues was boring. You were Link, Zelda was the Snow White-like corpse on a temple dais, and Ganon was responsible. And we had to reclaim the Triforce to wake her up. For 11-year-old me, this game might as well have been fucking Dark Souls. I asked friends to help me through it, but they were clueless too. The golden cartridge sat on my shelf of my NES games, mocking me in my failure to not brute force it because I wanted to have fun, not read. Not make maps to follow clues. Turns out, I would have loads of fun doing all that just a few years later when I started playing tabletop games. So it was likely a maturity thing. But back then I hated this game. I replayed it as an adult on the Switch as well, and I had a much better time with it. I know The Adventure of Link has a really bad reputation among gaming circles for a variety of reasons, but having replayed it, to be honest, I think its reputation is undeserved. It is very much the black sheep of the franchise, but it is in fact a really good game. It may not be the most Zelda-ish of games, but the same argument could have been leveled against Wind Waker or Breath of the Wild or every iteration of this long-running series that doesn't look like Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time, because people like to bitch. The adventure of Link, I think, much like the first Legend of Zelda, are arguments that gaming was never really for kids, at least not all of it, as these games were more for adults to explore and have a sense of wonder about, rather than for immature players, kids mainly, fumbling around getting frustrated and not really connecting with the sense of wonder the games are built around. And if you are listening to this and saying, hey, I was a kid and I played through no problem and I had plenty of wonder, well then fucking good for you. Aren't you special like every other little shit stain in your age bracket? I didn't until I was much older. But yes, in retrospect, this game is really good. Not great, but really good and definitely worth a second evaluation. Canonically, the next game I would play that I haven't otherwise covered was Twilight Princess from 2006. After Wind Waker and the backlash over the cartoon graphical style, Nintendo went all in trying to make the graphics of this game as realistic as possible. The Link of this game has suddenly developed lycanthropy, and would spend time between his adult human form and wolf form when solving puzzles in the Dark World with Midna, Zelda's cranky goth cousin. After an usurper named Zant invades Hyrule and brings with him the world of darkness that transforms everything. Link must retrieve both the Master Sword and the Mirror of Twilight to travel between both the light and dark worlds, and Zant reveals that he was working to revive Ganondorf. The mirror rebuilt and the Master Sword obtained, Link defeats Ganon. Midna has released from the curse that made her a tiny terror to a Lady Dimitrescu level Kirby redhead, and she is the true ruler of the dark world of Twilight. And she breaks the mirror after saying goodbye to Link. This was a fun enough game, but for me, this one kind of fell flat compared to the others in the series. The transformation from person to wolf was not really interesting. Midna is mostly an annoying little shit until she drops the act late in the game and reveals she's an actual person under all this attitude, but by then the damage is done. And I felt like I was forced to spend way too much goddamn time interacting with the fishing minigame in this title to help progress the plot. It was a lot of bits and pieces from every story thread from other games that were finally tack-welded together to make a game that was an apology for daring to make a cel-shaded graphic style. Yes, it was critically acclaimed, but I forced myself through it long after I was bored because I'd paid good money for its GameCube version, and goddammit, I was going to get my money's worth when I was broke and didn't have the money to waste on products I'd wished I hadn't bought. So for me, Twilight Princess faded back into the darkness that spawned it as not one of the better entries of the series. And of course, we arrive at the twin elephants in the room, 2017's Breath of the Wild and 2023's Tears of the Kingdom. Well, 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 well. A lot of ink has been spilled over these titles, and I'm speaking about them as one because it's a rare case of a direct sequel in a Zelda series. I'm not going to cover what anyone else has to say, either known critics or hobbyists with a microphone. I was excited for Breath of the Wild. I was happy to see the cel shading again, which I felt was a new team's fuck you to the critics of Wind Waker. I didn't care for the weapons breaking constantly, but I get the idea it was to emulate a broken, destroyed world in the wake of the poison the evil spirit of Ganondorf had been pumping into Hyrule due to a millennia ago advanced civilization, regardless of which timeline you followed. I like the genuine post-apocalyptic feel, even if it is a cartoony good guy whose only word is screaming "Ha!" at the top of his lungs. A real silent protagonist of the old school. The mechanics are neat and really gave a feel for moment-to-moment gameplay, where you could truly decide to tackle any challenge as you liked. I liked gathering stuff, cooking food, making medicines, managing stamina, believe it or not. I like getting new armor sets. I liked helping out the great fairies and releasing them from their flower prisons. And if you have seen the great fairies in this game and what they look like, I'm beginning to think I have a type. The little device that looked like the Nintendo Switch console was fun, I thought. But the game is too fucking big and too fucking empty. And you have to go explore all of the small shrines to get more orbs to be able to upgrade Link's health and stamina to survive the bigger challenges. I hate those shrines. They are goddamn boring. It takes too fucking long to travel anywhere. I wasted entire multiple-hour gaming sessions just on travel, which is never fun. And when Tears of the Kingdom added the necessity of building shit to advance the game, Jesus fucking Snore City. No, I didn't enjoy that. And Tears tripled the map size by adding a sky world and an underground world to explore as well, and it was all too much. I wanted to really love these games. Honestly, I did. But they are seriously too big. It's somehow exactly the same in both games. I don't feel I ever could complete either in my lifetime. I just have too much going on in the real world to spend weeks upon weeks in Hyrule anymore. If giant open worlds have already become a problem elsewhere, then instead of a tighter, more focused game, Nintendo doubled the fuck down and learned the absolute wrong lesson here by making bloat overtake wonderment. I am so torn on these two games. I'll never finish them, and I'm not even sure I care to. Yes, I know you could charge right to the end boss of these games. I don't want to. I want to see the world and get the goodies, but not on this scale, and not in the way that replaces fun with frustration. A checklist of chores instead of a game filled with action and adventure. The original Legend of Zelda seems quaint in comparison, and the wrong lessons were learned here, which, considering all that went into these games, is too bad. As a side note, and again due to the availability of them on the Switch, I got to play 1993's Link's Awakening and 2004's The Minish Cap. I already knew by now the twist of Link's Awakening and how he ended up on the island nation of Koholint, and why he must wake up the Windfish to go home when I started the game. But regardless of already knowing the what and the why of this plot, I still decided to take the opportunity to play it, and I'm really glad I did. This game is such a fun little title. Not tied to the other games of the series, but it is a wonderful combination of the original Legend of Zelda and A Link to the Past. This game is also a clearinghouse of Nintendo references to other games. Very dreamlike, no pun intended. Where Link can meet versions of Kirby, Yoshi, Dr. Wright from Sim City, some of the enemies from the Super Mario Bros. Game series, and a bunch of fourth wall breaks. Although this has happened again, as it is famously known that Mario and Luigi own Hyrule's Lon Lon Ranch. Nintendo never shied away from including its stable of characters in other games. See the Metroid reference in Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. But it was just such a cute game, and very much a traditional title, just shrunk down to fit the Game Boy. This is a beloved title, and I can understand why. And I'm glad the team that worked on this title was allowed a lot of freedom to craft and make jokes within the game. The Minish Cap was also a delight, but what really stuck out to me was its development by Capcom of all studios, famous for a lot of games that don't have anything to do with The Legend of Zelda. But this wasn't the first time they took up a contract from Nintendo. From the opening of the game, though, this looks very much like a Capcom game, just using Zelda tropes. This may well have been a Mega Man X or a Super Ghouls and Ghosts, in its smooth, childlike animation style, reminiscent of a Disney-fied anime show. The game is gorgeous to behold, and even Link's floppy clown shoe walking animation adds to the overall fun atmosphere of the title. The point of this game is Link obtaining a magical talking hat named Ezlo, then can shrink him down to the size of the fabled Minish, who were said to fight the Picori, an ancient race of diminutive monsters that plagued Hyrule long ago, but a young hero once held this cap and was able to defeat them. This Link must take up the cap and sword and defeat this invading force once again by wandering the land and solving shrinking puzzles and pushing boxes and shit around while defeating monsters. None of this is related to the series' evil Ganon, but it is a side story, which is a great idea. If you have a long-running series like this, it is best not to have everything revolve around one main bad guy for the whole of it, but having side stories where the hero of time gets to do other shit and take on other problems. This is a brilliant small-scale adventure that loses none of the charm of its bigger series brothers, and got a good injection of talent from a third-party developer who had a lot of experience in building exactly this type of game in look and feel. Even if the fantasy plot of a talking hat helping you defeat an army of tiny goblins is a silly premise. But hey, we've had a lot of fairy tales around tiny bad guys needing someone to stop them. The Minish Cap is yet another critical darling among the handheld titles of the series, and it makes me think that maybe Nintendo does better with Zelda titles when they are smaller handheld titles rather than giant sprawling epics with largely empty maps. And over time, there is nobody in this industry of games that hasn't in some way been touched by the charm and inspiration of the Legend of Zelda series. Sam and Dan Houser of Rockstar Games, Amy Hennig of Soul Reaver and Uncharted fame, Hideki Kamiya of Capcom and Platinum Games, Hidetaka Miyazaki of From Software and the Dark Souls games, Peter Molyneux of Lionhead and Microsoft Studios, CG Projekt Red said its influence was in The Witcher 3. I could go on. But just about anybody who is anybody in gaming has been touched by Link and his quest to defeat Ganon once and for all. How can I, as a simple podcaster, say anything greater or more different than what generations of players and developers have already said about this classic series? Saying the series is beloved is an understatement, even if it did start with a misfire for me. There are games in the series for everyone, young and old, console and mobile. We have, all of us, in some way or another, been part of every Link's journey, and its quest through time and space to stop one of the most prolific villains in the current history of media has touched all of us in return. And each of us has had a chance to be the hero, or at least guide the hero on his many, many journeys. One of my best Halloween costumes I ever came up with, at least when I was a kid and still did that, sorry folks, I haven't done any Halloween dress up in decades, was to play as Link, and I will admit, putting on that green tunic and hat made me feel pretty powerful in a way I've rarely felt in my life. It felt like a purpose, silly as that sounds. Hero stories are a necessary part of our survival. We need them, as much as we need food, water, and shelter. We've been telling them for centuries, and they are as much a part of the human experience as anything else. And Miyamoto-san's creation, based on his own childhood wanderings, has become part of the tapestry of our experiences. To quote author Terry Pratchett, humans need fantasy to be human, to be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape. End quote. The good versus evil of heroic fantasy helps us move safely through that transition period in all of our lives, when we can no longer believe the little lies, like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, but so that we can still believe the big lies, like justice and mercy, and all the good things we hold dear as a people and a society. And now we induct The Legend of Zelda into the Heroes Hall of Fame, the digital Valhalla, where all of our bit and byte heroes wait for us, forever young, forever ready to take up the fight once again in a world where none of those things are clear, and we never truly know whose side anyone is on, even our own. And in 2024, The Legend of Zelda rolls on, changing effortlessly with the times and demands of the industry, even if it doesn't always fit what the old hands of the series would like of the newer games. But I can say with confidence that there will yet be a Legend and a Link and a Zelda, for at least a few more generations to come. And I think for a few more generations after that, the ripples of its stories will have an effect on the industry, in whatever form that takes or evolves into. There will always be a hero of time to bring a smile to the lips of the cynic, and to bring wonder to the eyes of the child. The Legend of Zelda will be around for a while yet, as long as there are people still willing to tell and retell the stories. Be one of those people. Retell the stories. Thank you for listening. Deleted Saves would like to thank Brad, Keith Gasper, Orton Wells, and Maslama for being patrons of the show. If you would like to become a patron of the show, please go to patreon.com and check out Deleted Saves podcast. All donations go directly towards maintaining the show itself. Thank you.